Greetings, Rebel fans. My name is Jason Kelly. This is the Let's Run podcast. Want to welcome you to the show tonight. We are celebrating a Rebel victory over the Utah State Aggies. The Rebels led at halftime 41-7, end up losing the second half, something like 28-9, for an ultimate final score of 50-34. The Rebels, if you would have told me at halftime when the Rebels were up 41-7 and asked me whether the Rebels would have covered in this game, I would have said absolutely. There's no way the Rebels don't cover, but they end up failing to cover the spread. I don't think that Ricky White had any catches in the second half. I hope that he was, not, taking it easy and, not getting injured in the second half. Jet Thomas had an outstanding day, 139 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground. Malik Williams, he finished 13 of 20, 233 yards, 3 touchdowns. However, there were some early passes that were missed, but nothing, too crazy to complain about. I thought that some of the times there was some decision-making in terms of when he was getting blitzed. And so, little nitpicky stuff that you can say about Malik Williams. Overall, I'm pleased with his night. I'm not really mad at the offense, although I do wish that they had been able to capitalize on some of the red zone trips in the second and even the first half. We have been a little mediocre to kind of mid in the red zone. And that's a little concerning, especially as you play teams, like Boise State, like Oregon State next weekend. And now let's look at the defense. I will get into the defense. If you're coming on the post-game show and you do not want to hear me be critical of the defense because we won and we're UNLV and for 50 years we were bad and so we should just be grateful. We're 5-1. One thing I can promise you is that the coaches tonight are not happy with the defense. They're going in, they're yelling at the guys, they're frustrated. They're going to show them film and be like, what the heck are you doing? And so if you want I'm still obviously I'm very pleased with the win. A win on the road in conference play is always a good thing, no matter what opponent you're playing. A win on the road is an objectively good thing. And I don't think that, our defense struggling like it did tonight will keep us from having success next week against Oregon State. But, there's some major red flags with the defense. There just is. Some of it's scheme, some of it's personnel, some of it's just player performance. Big issues with the defense. But I'll give you a little recap of the game. UNLV was dominant in the first quarter. Utah State had an early touchdown, but UNLV was, basically just a turnover machine on the defensive side of the ball in the first half. And that led to a very good, first half for the defense, even though there were some errors in our coverages and there were some guys that were open. I would say overall the defense had a very good first half. The second half, obviously, I think that the defense played not just bad, but their worst ball. The defense played their worst football of the year in the second half against Utah State. They were putrid. In a game where we should have had Cam Friel playing, in a game where we should have been able to get our second stringers and third stringers some much needed reps, our defense said nope. And so that's pretty disappointing. Again, nothing against the offense. I think guys like Jet Thomas, Malik Williams, Ricky White, they deserve all the praise in the world. They're incredible. They will have to, have their foot down on the gas next week and really do well. But, when your defense plays this bad, we really needed a second half that was just comfortable, where we were able to put in those second and third stringers. And because of our defense, it did not happen. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And feel free to leave stuff in the comments. Please do. I would love to read what you guys are saying and your guys' opinions about this. Because there were some issues. So what I kind of noticed in the first half of this game, as I was watching, was, our defense plays very soft zone coverages. And if you want to hear me talk about the offense, I don't feel like there's a ton to say there. They were just kind of trying to close out the second half. They didn't play a great second half, but it doesn't really matter. All credit to the offense. I hope that you guys understand that I have nothing against our offense tonight. Brennan Marion and the offense did fine. No issues at all. But I kind of noticed in the first half, and it worked in the first half, to be fair, that our defense, we play very soft zone coverages. And what that does is it allows, it's kind of a bend and don't break philosophy. You're willing to give up that 5-yard pass. And the reason why I know that the Rebels are willing to give up that kind of 5 to 10-yard intermediary pass is because, 15, 20 times tonight, a receiver caught the ball and didn't have a defender within 8 or 9 yards of him. That's kind of my biggest issue with this defense is that continually the other team's players are catching the ball and there is no Rebel within 5 or 10 yards of them. Now, the Rebels are doing a pretty good job of containing those guys once they get the ball. And so, I get why they're doing that. They don't want to give up explosive plays. It helps against the run game. Again, you look at Utah State tonight in the team stats. Let's look at the box score here. In terms of rushing, Utah State rushed for 120 yards, 123 yards. That's really good. Our rushing defense is really solid, and I think that could be advantageous to us when we play a team like Boise State. But it's back-to-back weeks that a quarterback has thrown 60 times against us. And I'm sorry, this is a scheme. This is a scheme issue. Kyle McCord threw 65 times against us last week. Jordan, I feel like there are too many talented DBs to not work on man coverage, especially with a big lead. Good time to work it in, but they didn't. I didn't just think the defense was bad tonight in the second half. I thought it was offensive. It was terrible. And if you come in here and you say, "Wait, we're coming off a win. How dare you be negative?" When we play Oregon State on the road next week, when we play Boise State 2 weeks from now, these things are going to matter. We're not going to play a team like Utah State every week. I would love to get on here and be just gushing about the team over and over and over again. And I am about the offense. I have no negative things to say about the offense at all. But this feels like a scheme issue at this point. This feels like a scheme issue. Soft zone coverages are getting picked apart. They just are. And it's killing our defense. Now, how do you fix that? So you might not get as many interceptions, but you have to let your guys man up on defense. When the Rebels did that tonight, I thought it looked pretty good. I think we have the personnel to do this. It's not a question of personnel. Against Mountain West teams, maybe against Syracuse, you could kind of understand because that's a Power 5 team. And you kind of get why you would do that. But Utah State, Spencer Petras, I don't think he's a very good quarterback, Utah State's quarterback. He's not terrible by any means. He's okay. He's average and mediocre. But 41 completions for 461 yards? I just what is our defensive philosophy here, guys? Now, I get it. Our players took their foot off the gas in the second half. Any team would do that. When you're up 41-7 on the road, you take your foot off the gas. And so some of it's probably that. And I don't mean to be too harsh on them because, when I played sports back when I was in high school, that's something that happens. You cannot fake desperation. And Utah State got a heck of, if you were listening to the broadcast, Utah State got a massive pep talk where their coach basically called them out and said, you either play or you don't leave the locker room. And so Utah State was very motivated in the second half. They have talent, but I just want to see defensive players be near the receivers when the receivers get the ball. I feel like Utah State and Syracuse's players are catching the ball 2 or 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, and there's not a defensive player anywhere near them. That is a soft zone coverage. We're giving these guys 10, 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. And I'm sorry, that kind of stuff, Boise State is a rush-heavy offense, 1,000%. They're very good at running the ball. That's going to be what they focus on. But Boise State's quarterback, Maddox Matson, is capable of making every throw that Spencer Petras did for Utah State tonight. And once they have this much room to operate on the offensive end, Ashton Genty is going to have way more room to attack our run defense. UNLV cannot play this scheme against Oregon State next week. Now, I'm not saying they have to throw away the whole defensive playbook. The coaches know a lot more about this than I do. I trust them to recognize the issue, but I hope they change the scheme just a little bit. I hope they let their guys play people a little tighter. And I understand that we're dealing with some injuries. Jalen Catalon did not play after the half. I think he's dealing with some sort of injury. I hope it's not serious. Genuinely, I mean, Jalen Catalon is a guy that we need for our defense. McDuffie is a player that I thought was going to be available last week against Syracuse and definitely this week against Utah State. And he's not there. But like Jackson Woodard, our all world defensive player, he's in the middle of the field. On the outside towards the sideline, our DBs, our corners are giving these guys way too much room. And tonight, it's not going to kill us. Yeah, exactly. Got to play the zone a lot tighter and stop the short inside passes. Yeah, it's killing us. We lost the game last week, death by 1,000 cuts. 60 completions for a bad quarterback in Spencer, not a bad quarterback, a mediocre quarterback in Spencer Petras. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. And I can tell the reason why the coaches are doing this is because our defense is a turnover machine. When we're dropping back in these zone coverages, it's confusing their quarterbacks, and we're trying to force interceptions, and it's working. But it's also giving life to every offense that we play. It's a dangerous game. Against Utah State, not going to bite us in the butt. Against Fresno State, they executed it flawlessly. Against teams with good quarterbacks, I don't know. I mean, I think that Maddox Madsen at Boise State is good enough to punish us for this type of coverage. And we're not, it doesn't feel like we're getting enough pressure on the quarterback. We're just I feel like our defense is playing too passive. Our defense is playing not to lose. If you ever watch, a Kevin Kruger-led basketball team up 5 with a minute to go, when you start dribbling the ball out and taking bad shots at the end of the shot clock and you start playing not to lose, it bites you in the butt. And it feels like our whole defensive scheme is playing not to lose. I would rather give up an 85-yard run to Ashton Genty than give up a 15-play, 11-minute drive with short pass after short pass after short pass after short pass, cutting our defense apart. But that's just me. I mean, listen, the coaches know this. I mean, like they're smart. They know that this is a problem. They feel like they're making the best decision possible. They're being paid the big bucks. Again, Barry Odom, he's a defensive oriented guy. And, I hope that somebody in the press tonight, I'm here in Vegas. I really wanted to come up to this game in Logan, and I also really wanted to go to the game in Corvallis next week. Sadly, neither of those things are going to happen. I'm not going to be able to get to either game. But, when you're playing teams that are in better positions than Utah State, and it bit us in the butt last week against Syracuse. It did. And we could have and probably should have won that game based on everything that was under our, we had dropped interceptions. We could have and should have won that game without the refs even having to play any role at all. But I'm very worried about this coverage. And I think next week against Oregon State is going to be kind of gut check time for this defense. They looked good in the first half, but the only reason they look good is because they forced turnovers. Let's look at, look at the team stats of this game. On third down efficiency, Utah State was 8 of 17, and then they were 3 of 4 on fourth down. That essentially means in third and fourth down situations, Utah State was 11 of 21. That's not good enough, man, especially when a bunch of those were third and longs. Last week against Syracuse, UNLV, on third down. I gotta pull these up because they were wild last week. On third down, Syracuse was 11 of 18. That's not good. That's not good. This sitting back in zone style coverage, I get it, maybe on first and second down, but our coaches have to throw in some different looks on these offenses that we're playing. Look, I wanted to cover. I wanted to come on and absolutely rain on Utah State and talk about, oh my gosh, we got revenge for what happened to the Thomas and Mack last year, and we still won. At the end of the night, a win is a win. It was on the road with a pretty good crowd. I mean, the Rebels took it out of them early, but I just there's warning signs here, and I hope and I know that the coaches know this, and they will look into fixing it and try and make it better. But I'm worried about the defense. I am. However, tonight is a night to be happy. It's a night to be happy that the Rebels won. They were up crazy big in the second half, and I just wish that the defense and the second and third stringers could have gotten in there because we had a concussion on. I'm not which player was it again? I have to look this up. A player in the second half. We had a player get a concussion in the second half that I thought was kind of rough. Um, but we had, with our defense playing like they did, they weren't able to get Cam Friel into the game for Hodge Malik Williams. They weren't able to Jet Elad. Thank you. Yeah, Jet Elad, one of our most important defensive players, should not have been in the game. He should have been resting on the bench with second and third stringers in the game. I'm worried. I'm worried about our defense. However, a win is a win. The Rebels are one win away from bowl eligibility. Obviously, that's not the goal this year. The goal is to win a Mountain West Conference championship and contend for a college football playoff spot. That's still the goal, regardless of what happened against Syracuse. But the defense is concerning. The defense is concerning. So I will be seeing if I can see some Barry Odom quotes post game. I hope somebody asks him about the defense. I think that we have the personnel to play better than this. And if we if we play like this and how we played against Syracuse, against Boise State, we're going to lose. We're going to lose, and I don't think it's going to be very close. And it's weird because I didn't really feel like this is how we were playing against Kansas or Houston, but maybe I need to go back and look at the way we were covering those teams. Both of those teams struggle on offense, and so maybe we're just playing better offensive teams now. But Utah State's one of the 10 worst teams in the country. They just kind of are this year. It's not their fault. It's not the fans' fault. Actually, it is the school's fault because of all the Title IX crap that they had going on there that caused them to fire their coach like a month before the season started. But Oregon State, this is the big one. We're past this kind of trap game. I'm disappointed we didn't cover, but the coverage for Oregon State this week is going to be really good. I'm going to see if I can get on some Oregon State content, people that talk Oregon State football. I'm going to see if I can get together with them and create kind of a good little preview. I will do a film review Monday for this game. I'm hoping to get some better technology so that I can accurately show kind of what's going on here with our defense. But overall, a win is a win. It's a win on the road against a team that was very motivated in the second half versus us who were not super motivated. I hope that the coaches are laying into the guys tonight. I didn't like what I saw in that second half. I didn't like the body language. I didn't like anything about it. We just kind of fell flat. And hey, maybe that's just a reality, but we will have a fun Saturday. We can sit back and watch football knowing that our team won. So, Master Rebel, when you mean 68 passes per game is not average, I'd attribute some of our defensive links to high volume. Elaborate on what you mean by that. I'll give you a sec to respond. But elaborate on what you mean by that. Defensive leaks to high volume. Do you think it's just because we played two very pass-heavy offenses? Because Utah State is a team that does run the ball. Faison's a very good running back. So I want to know what you think about that, Mr. Master Rebel. If you guys know him, he's a legend in the UNLV community. Always happy to talk to Mr. Master Rebel. But yeah, I mean, Yeah, most defenses don't face 60 passes a game. Utah State was down by a lot, so they obviously didn't have a motivation to run the ball a ton. I don't, if you look at Oregon State, I don't expect Oregon State to throw that much against this Rebel defense, but it's going to be something I'm looking for this next game against Oregon State. It's going to be an important thing. I'll break it all down in film. Update for the podcast Sunday night. I think we are going to move the Burner Brigade kind of space to tomorrow night, depending on kind of what's going on with football. I don't know who's going to be on yet. Is our offense too efficient? Not in the second half. Our offense only scored 9 points in the second half against a putrid defense. Now, some of that was by design. Some of that was, I'm sorry, I thought I was going to end this. What's going on with our snapping? What's going on with our center and Hodge? There's 4 or 5 times a game there's an issue with snapping the ball, and it killed 2 drives tonight. That's pretty frustrating. That's got to be fixed. I don't know. I mean, I think our team is probably a little tired of these Friday night games. They're kind of hard on student athletes. So hopefully having a late Saturday night game will help kind of re-energize the guys. They'll get back to Vegas. They'll look at the film and they'll figure it out. Burner Brigade podcast will be tomorrow night. I've decided it will probably be during the Boise State game, so we can kind of watch that game live together a little bit. We'll be on Spaces. I hope you guys can join me. I'm hoping Masshole and Reno Hater will be on as well, although I know that there's some conflicts with work. But I will do a burner space tomorrow night during the Boise State game. So, all right, guys, that's all I had for tonight. Look for film review on Monday. We will break open the film together and go over it. Again, I'm not the greatest X's and O's guy, but we can at least look at some of the patterns together. Expect film review to be out sometime Monday afternoon. And Burner Brigade will be tomorrow night during the Boise State game. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate you. Hope you can join the space. If you can't, hope you can get on the next one. Sorry that I'm not going to be up in Corvallis. I wish I could have hung out with you up there. My wife can't. My wife said no. So you got to listen to the wife. So go Rebels. Still a good night. Still something to celebrate. Being 5-1 is still a good thing. However, I hope that our coaches are looking at hard and long at our defense. So you guys have an awesome night. Let's run.